ladies Metal Chain, and welcome to the VK4502P ausf review, the German tier 9 heavy tank. This tank had changed like 2 patches ago. I did have a review on it before it got buffed, but now after the buff the tank has changed significantly, and it's actually, if not overpowered, then definitely viable to play. It is definitely it's definitely the best armor tier 9 heavy tank for sure, and it's one of the better ones. If you like slow and well-armored tanks, it's probably one of your best choices these days. So let's look into that armor I've been talking about. So 200 upper, 200 lower plate might not seem like that much, but both plates are angled around 50 degrees if you look at them dead on. But usually you'll get a bit less on the upper plate, like 45 to 50 degrees if you don't angle the hull at all. And it's gonna be 60 on the lower plate. So whenever you are seeing this tank, don't bother with the lower plate. It's as strong as the upper plate and most likely with better angling than the upper plate as well. So never try to shoot this tank in the upper or lower plate. What is there to shoot is the turret ring, which is down below, which also is too strong for most. You need to shoot it right below the gun if you want to pen it, otherwise it's going to be sloped. Other weak spot is here, a little machine gun port. It's a really tiny target, so you need to have either accurate gun or you need to pray to RNGs enough. Other weak spots, cupola, 160 armor, not very good, but it's smaller than on the E75, and the thing is that it is farther away from the tanks that are shooting you. So for instance, if you are facehugging like an IS-7, it can barely see your cupola. If you stare right into it, then tanks like an IS-7 will have a hard time hitting this without touching the turret and so on. When it comes to angling against people, you really don't need to do too much as long as they're not spamming heat or gold ammo at you. When they start to, there's only so much you can do because the sidearm is only 100, which will make the armor values pretty damn poor all across the board if you do angle this more than at 70 degrees, which is the auto bounce. If you do angle more than that, you'll be in trouble just because the sidearm is crap. Well, the upper plate gets better, as you can see. You can squeeze like 320 armor, or something like that, but you won't get all the front of about 300 almost, no matter what you do. So there's only so much you can do against angling against heat. Same goes with the turret. 250 armor is really good, unless people are spamming heat at you. When they are, just try to wiggle a lot and move a lot so they can get to shoot the flat surfaces of your turret if you're side scraping or something like that. Side scraping in this tank is decent enough, obviously, because of the back mounted turret. Just don't overforce it. Remember that your sidearm is shit, and try to not show it in too much of an angle. Other than that, there's not really much to say. We can compare the substats real quick to the E75. As you can see, the mobility stats are better. Maneuverability, aiming circle spread is better, but it's mostly because this tank is slow as shit while the E75 is not. And for some reason this tank is actually lighter than the E75, so better power to weight ratio. When it comes to the substats, it is worse. Top speed is worse as well, and backward speed minus 15 is pretty damn good, or 15 kilometers an hour backwards, not really minus 15. When it comes to gun depression, minus 5, it is worse than on the E75. E75 gets minus 6, but this tank is minus 5 all around the tank, so you can't really fuck up with that one. Well, the E75 has like a bump in the front, and then there's almost no gun depression to the back. Elevation 18 degrees, which is pretty damn good, but the German heavies are usually famous for, well, not famous, but they're known for having good gun elevation. That being said, I'm pretty sure we have dug through most of the stats that matter, so let's get into the replay. So here's the game, playing on Cliff, playing solo, really good matchmaking for a tier 9 heavy tank. But before the game starts, as always, let's look into the stats of the tank real quick. 950 hit points, or probably the highest of any tier 9 heavy tank. 30 kilometers an hour top speed limit, worse than on probably any other tier 9 heavy tank. 15 kilometers backward speed, which is actually half decent. It is better than most Russians and most American tanks, even at tier 10. It is for some reason quite light. 78 tons for a tank like this is a bit on the low side if you compare it to the 91 tons of the E75, but it's still, you don't want to be ramming into this tank all that much when you drive medium tanks or whatnot. Engine power you saw already, traverse speed 20 degrees per second on the hull, which is significantly worse than on the E75, which gets 30. Terrain resistance you saw as well, view range 400 meters, makes optics viable. I don't really, wouldn't really recommend using them though, because the tank is slow as shit and you don't really get to spot all that much in this. Third traverse 18 degrees per second, same as on the E75 and the ST1 actually as well. When it comes to the guns, this is the same gun that every German top tier tank uses pretty much. 490 alpha damage, 246 penetration with AP, 311 with APCR, doesn't get heat. DPM is quite low for this, it's lower than on pretty much any other heavy tank at the tier. Even the SD1 gets quite a significantly better DPM, and tanks like Anais just steams ahead of these in terms of DPM. Accuracy 0.38, same as on the E75, and aiming time 2.9 seconds, which might sound like shit, but since the tank is slow as shit, it is not that bad. When we look into the game, what I've done so far, trading here with Anais is an obvious mistake, but you have 1950 health, you should use it, even though you make bad trades like this. I mean, I got lucky on the IS-6 at the start, so I could afford to try to get another trade, and if I actually penned that shot, he would have been a one shot, and instead I'm gonna hit this shot blind. It's actually gonna penetrate, so you will be able to see just there. So, as I mentioned, one of the most important things in this tank is don't camp too much. You have a slow ass tank with a shitty ass DPM, so make use of your time really well, otherwise you're gonna be stuck as the last guy left alive on your team with full health, and then you're gonna get flanked and destroyed in around 3 seconds. Try to avoid that by trading your health for damage if you have to. Obviously it would be better to trade damage for bounces off, but you don't have time for that shit, and just try to do damage. Damage is the most important thing you have to do when you're a top tier heavy tank, even when you're not a top tier. When you're not a top tier, just try to angle slightly more than I am here, because here I'm just driving backwards most of the game, but just try to not make, take too much time before reloads. You really want to shoot that gun every time it reloads, otherwise your game is not going to be great regardless, so make sure you at least shoot reasonable amount of times per minute. As you can see here, I'm about to be reloaded and I'm already looking for my next shot, which is kind of how you should play it. This obviously there's no RD, which probably is the only reason why this game even happened, because most of the game I was right in the middle of the open, but when you have these opportunities you have to take full advantage of them, and that's what I'm doing here. Again, not angling my tank for shit, because I don't have time for it. I mean, even if I trade with another IS, I still have shitload of health left. When I'm gonna get on lower health, I might have to worry about that more, but now my worry is to kill these guys fast enough so the medium tanks can't shoot me in the back. I'm not even sure what the mediums T-54 and T-44 did this entire time I was killing their buddies here. There is a TD camping at the back, probably the Borsig. Well, it couldn't really be anything else but the Borsig, so I need to be careful of that as well. This is a pretty poor play. I mean, held down T-32, and the tank has a huge ass front, so obviously he pins my front while I missed his cupola. Not really surprising, he got quite lucky in that shot as well, but I can't complain. I wasn't angling, I was expecting to trade health, and maybe I should not have gone for it. There's the Waffle, he kills the IS-3, so I'm gonna go for that. Probably not the greatest idea ever, because it would be quite well able to kill the T-32, but since I penned this shot, it doesn't really matter all that much. Need to be constantly aware of positions of those medium tanks behind me. Need to make sure that they cannot shoot me in the back either. Gonna take out this guy now, because why not? The shoe tank has, the enemy VK has dealt with our tier 9 medium, now he's gonna deal with our E75 as well. A lot of really bad players in this game, so really good matchmaking for this, and this is the kind of matchmaking where I can make miracles happen with this tank, especially with no RD. When it comes to the equipment, it's rammer, obviously, vert stabs, obviously, and the third equipment choice is kind of a meaningless choice, really. I mean, whatever you prefer, you can go for. Ventilation, optics, gun length, drive. It all ranks up the same in my opinion. So it's all up to you, really. Now the medium tanks. It's a bit unfortunate that they both are high enough health for me to not be able to one-shot them. And as you can see, that they can just drive way backwards pretty much from me. And this is the first really bad shot in this game. T-44 played well though, but that shot was not I should have aimed it right and planted it right into his upper plate instead of trying to be greedy and track him and do damage. But it was unfortunate, no, to say the least. So now we run into the problem when there's VKB in front of me, T-34 in front of me, and these two medium tanks are still alive, and they're probably going to kill the T-34, which is probably going to be the most annoying part about this game. Well, these medium tanks. I get the T-34, but the T-44 still manages to run away. And now you will be able to see how this armor performs when you're being shot at by tanks with around 240 penetration from distance. I mean, as long as they're within the 70-degree radius of your frontal plate, you don't really have to worry about anything in this tank. This tank dies, 9 times out of 10 this tank dies to either arty or while it's been left alone on the flank and got just outflanked by like 7 tanks. This is how usually this tank goes down. This kind of engagements, you're never gonna die. As you can see, bounce after bounce, there's nothing they can do about it. I actually didn't realize that the VK was so stupid to turn his side on me there, but he did, and he's gonna get spotted right after I shoot. I would have been able to plant another shot into him, but the blind shot on the T-34 hit anyways. So now is the first major mistake that could have cost me the game. T-44 behind me that I don't know if I noticed or I just ignored. But that was a really bad decision because he's not a one-shot clearly for me. And he can do a lot of damage this way. As I said before, the only way this tank dies is when it's flanked. And even now I know that I have to face the heavy tanks with my front and only shoot the T-44 after both of those fire. I get lucky one more time in this game with a high roll on the tank that I really needed to high roll on. And now we're back to where we started. 2 heavy tanks in front of me. None of them is going to be able to do shit because VK armor too strong. Bouncing shot after shot, just piling up on the potential damage. VK is going down, so he's not going to be my concern anymore, but I can go for the T-34. Already 6 kills stacked up, and I'm not sure if I can get another one to seal the deal, but whatever. One thing I want to add before we round up this review is that crew skills you want to use obviously requires 6th sense, and I don't even think that aiming stats are so important on this tank, but then again, if you don't use aiming stats, there's not really all that much useful things in there. So, obviously the view range skills are always useful, and probably the aiming skills. Clutch braking actually would be pretty decent skill in this tank. It turns slow as shit, so you might want to fix that just a bit. This is a poor play, I should have taken that shot, it was quite an obvious one, and that's a bit unfortunate. It wasn't very well aimed, but it's a bit unfortunate anyways. But Bounce City, the shot after shot, they don't really stand a chance, let's be honest here. And plant one more shot into this guy. Almost 6k damage that I saw, but I'm definitely sure that I hit some blind shots in this game. So here's the end plate: Ace Tanker, Top Gun, High Caliber, and Steel Wall. 4,394 experience with the double, 6,886 damage done, so did get some blind shots in. 269 damage assisted, around 5k potential damage taken in that game as well. Final thoughts on this tank: it is viable. I can definitely see why you would play this over an Ace E5 now. It's not really my tank because I don't have the patience to play slow tanks like that. Besides, it can be really infuriating to play this with all the scumbags playing arty in the game at the moment. So if you get lucky matchmaking, if you get games without arty, this tank can be a ridiculous amount of fun and you can bounce ridiculous amounts of shots. But most of the games you will find people spamming heat at you or arty taking a dump on you. So the tank can be irritating to play, but it sets you in a proper mindset where if you want to get a mouse, it's probably gonna... It's kind of the same thing, only mouse has some frontal weak spots that this tank doesn't, and the other way around. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you on the next one.